this next talk and the final talk is about here at Ignite. I'm particularly excited to welcome Robert Moffat from Balderton Capital, a venture capital firm that has over $1.9 billion in management. He's going to talk about some pretty incredible applications. Do you want a microphone? Sorry, it's
here, actually.
You can use that. Perfect. Robert Moffat talking about augmented memory. Thank you.
Very good. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for making it in. So I'm going to talk about augmented memory. I'm sure you've seen this chart before. A couple of highlights. I mean, this is the sheer amount of information we have to handle. Every minute, 700,000 Facebook posts are made, 700,000 status updates on Facebook. How do I make that personal? For me, I see 80 new pieces of information an hour. I track this on Archify, of which I'll talk more about later. But it helps me keep track of everything I see. There's no way I can possibly remember that in this day and age. So what is the impact of all this on our minds? Scientific research from last year, when people expect to have future access to information, much lower rates of recall of the information, but improved recall of where to find that information in future. So our minds are changing. How do we actually handle all of this? 3 approaches I'm going to touch on very briefly. Self-improvement, using software, and then the human augmentation side. How do we use machinery combined with software here? What's the potential for self-improvement? A woman on the left here is Jill Price. She can remember every hour of every day for the last 32 years of her life. That just shows what the human brain is capable of. The question is, how do you unlock that huge computing power you have? This gentleman is Ed Cook. He can memorize a 1,000-digit number in 1 hour. More interestingly, he can teach an American journalist, Josh Furr, to become US memory champion over the course of only 1 year. He's now applying that to his company, Memrise, which is a Balderton investment. He can learn 6 times faster with Memrise. So learning Mandarin, for example, by these sort of memorable memes and by intelligently repeating the information at the right intervals. Lumosity, you probably heard of, raised $70 million venture capital. They claim they can improve your memory by 10% if you're a regular user. 10% is great, but that's nothing compared to the orders of magnitude more information we have to handle. So you've got to use software to do that. 3 approaches, Google, Archify, DataHug. Google first, I'm going to see the screen in a second. You're probably all familiar with the Google personal search results. And bring in your Gmail, bring in your Google Drive, bring in your personal browsing history. I think something like 20% of all Google queries are indirectly related to trying to find something that you saw before. All very good, but all limited to Google. Archify's approach is to take that and take it broader. So it brings in Facebook information, LinkedIn, Twitter, makes all of that searchable, and makes it searchable across any platform. So very interesting, launched last week. Final approach is, how do you take that broader? How do you make it collaborative with your colleagues? How do you have a shared memory with your colleagues? And DataHug does this. You see an interesting company, it shows you that one of your colleagues talked to them 73 days ago, and you understand the context of that conversation. So finally, the human augmentation side. How do you go further than this? How do you go beyond software? Larry Page likes to talk about the computer attached to your brain. How do we move towards that? Somewhat scarily, that actually is already happening. Scientists have put a chip into a rat's brain, and by sending electronic signals, they can get it to remember actions it has performed before. This came out last year. Still a long way away from applying that to humans, so we need to use use other objects for this. So this gentleman is Gordon Bell, long-term Microsoft employee. He's been wearing these kind of collection of gadgets around his neck for the last 10 years and records every moment of his life. Memoto is a Scandinavian startup launching early next year. Much more elegant way to do this. Little clip-on camera records every minute of your day and makes it searchable. Very helpful, but to retrieve it, you have to then look at your mobile app. So obviously, the Google Glass attempts to address this by beaming the right information to you at the right time on top of what you're seeing in the real world, modeled beautifully by Larry Page there. And the obvious use case for me for Google Glass is conferences. You see this sort of good-looking gentleman, you have no idea who he is. It would overlay on top his LinkedIn profile, his latest sort of Twitter posts. So you got the context and you actually pretend you really remember that person. Obviously, there's downsides. I'd urge you to watch a program called Black Mirror, which you can find on 4 on Demand. It shows the sort of worrying consequences of perfect memory and how it can sort of destroy human relationships. Definitely worth a watch. So fascinating, very broad area, far more than I could cover here. Some challenges to worry about, to think about over the next 10 years. How do you retrieve complex queries? How do you filter signal from noise? How do you remember connections and not just facts? And most importantly, how do you forget? Thank you very much.